Hello, good evening. Thank you, Mr. Prino, Mr. Del Moro, Ms. Creedon, members of the board. I certainly know how to pack the house here. I know everybody wanted to come out and see this presentation. So, so tonight begins one of many nights of budget discussions and presentations that we'll be presenting to the community and the board. And tonight we'll be focusing on the administrative budget first, and then we'll go into the instructional budget after that. So here's some dates that look for. In the capital and the benefits will be on March 1st, and then we'll have a revenue discussion on March 15th. Some of our assumptions for 18-19, although that's a little bit of ways away for us. When we had Jeff Smith, our financial advisor, he came in, he gave us some of these assumptions. So we know that the annual inflation rate is roughly 2%. Is actually the CPI this year is 2.1%. The TRS is at 11% increase, and employee retirement system is at 16.5% increase. And that's what they average it out depending on the number of years of service and employees here. So we go through all those numbers and come up with a total. We anticipate BOCES services at a 5% increase. We have more students attending BOCES in the occupational program and as well as special education program. The other thing that drives the cost is the capital and the administrative costs at BOCES. Last year, as you recall, we had the health insurance. We went self-funded as of October 1st, 2017. That is going very well. We were able to save, last year we saved a substantial, pretty close to $3 million in the budget going self-insured. And we hope to keep that trend moving forward as we get through this financial cycle as well. We know the first runs in January. The governor has proposed a foundation aid increase of 3%. That's a pretty good number for us right now. And hopefully, as in years past, that'll increase a little bit more for us for some more foundation aid. This year, the community school increase is almost 40%. Now, the community schools is money earmarked for special programs that you do not have already existing. You cannot supplant the money into something that's existing. So we're using a lot of resources for at-risk students at risk and things like that, and we're talking about bringing some more community involvement. Now, so the way we get that increase is the numbers that we report for our English language learners. So the more that increases, the more community aid, community school aid that the district will receive. Just to give you an overall snapshot, we have four components of the budget, really. And tonight we're looking at the administrative one, which is about 7% of the overall budget. And as you can see, the next one is the instructional, which will be in a little bit. That's the bigger piece of the pie. And then the benefits covers all three of those other areas. So here's our synopsis of where we are right now. The majority of our increases for this year are contractual salaries. Looking at every line after the comptroller came in, we're looking at some things and some recommendations that they gave us, and looking to see where we are budget-wise and see how we can move forward. And again, some of these are preliminary numbers, and that's why we call it the proposed budget. Things will change. As a matter of fact, today, at about 3:30, I just received BOCES information about what their contractual costs will be. So now we'll have to go back and put those into the calculations and see where we fall with those numbers. So basically, we try to put our best foot forward and put a number at where we think and look at trends historically where the numbers have fallen and increases have come in. So overall, for the administrative component this year, a little bit over $500,000 for a 4.84% increase in administrative budget. So that's pretty. If you look at the next slide, is everyone done looking at that, or do you need more time? Okay, you also have it in your packet. So if you look at the eight-year history, 8 years ago it was pretty bad. That's when the ceiling fell in on us, and then we've done pretty well ever since, maintaining a pretty good gradual rate of increases in the administrative budget. So this year's budget it's only 1/10 of an increase over last year, what last year's was. So it's pretty modest increase as the administrative component is concerned. Now, the administrative component consists of majority of a lot of directors, principals, their clerical staff. A lot of the business functions are in there. If we go back, I'll go through those a little bit. So we have a lot of the business functions. We have the treasurer, the tax collector, the purchasing agent. All our legal fees are in there. The personnel office, where we do records management. Of course, we have the superintendent's office, the business administration. And, it's basically this is what runs the district, all the components fiscally is what this is made up of. So again, this is a proposed budget for the administration, and this is without benefits. So this does not include health costs. This does not include workers' compensation. Does not include FICA, any of those Social Security taxes that we have to pay to the government. That'll be in.
So all of that, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
All of that falls into
The benefits.
the benefits.
Yeah. So we'll present that at the next meeting, and you can get a handle on what all those increases will be. And that we do that kind of later because of the, just waiting for all the governmental increases to settle, and then we can get a better handle on that for the staff. Go ahead, Paul.
I have a question. Can you just clarify the lines for Board of Education and district clerk and district meetings for the public?
Okay, so
And for me a little bit.
What's that?
I said, can you just give
Right.
us the
So we
breakdown?
have a couple of things. So the district clerk, I'll start with the district clerk. That's primarily the salary, and it combines maybe some supplies and other things that she needs to run the district clerk office. Okay, the district meeting are things that we do here. We have overtime for the staff that are running the meeting there. We use board docs. We use those types of things. The Board of Education, we have professional services. We have some other consulting things in there when you go to travel to NISBA, those types of, yeah. When you go to school boards and things like that. Right. So there's 3 different items, and we just categorize it. And this is all based on what how the state wants you to categorize your departments.
That was the clarification. I was wondering where the district meetings, where the travel and.
Yeah, that's the Board of Education.
Right.
Right. So the meeting is whatever we're doing here, board docs, the staff, and those types of things. And then the Board of Education will have in their purchase services for the travel.
Oh, there's
things like that.
thank you.
Yeah, it's itemized there a little
Right,
bit better.
I have it, thank you. Okay, thanks, just didn't
I
look at
think
it.
what we'll do is, why don't you go through your presentation?
Okay.
And people, please write down your questions. And
Yeah, I'm pretty much done with this one, so if you have any, and I just wanted to show you the historical tax cap growth factor. This is a factor that the state uses with the CPI. So last year we were at 1.26, this year we're at 2%. And that just really allows how much growth you can have in the community and in your budget. I just wanted to show you that. This year we got a substantial increase on the growth, so it should be pretty good revenue-wise for us. And just to recap the budget calendar, the main one that we're really looking forward is the budget election on May 15th. And if you're not a registered voter, please call Ms. Clark at 326-1196 to get registered for the vote. And another one that the Board of Education is really important is the budget adoption, which is April 19th. So we have about 2 months of conversation about the budget. We'll get revenue information. We'll get some different expenditure information. I think February 15th, the state is running their new state aid runs. And so we should be, probably next week, we'll have better details on what that revenue will be for us. And then they'll run a final one when the budget's approved in hopefully April, in the last 11th hour of the budget cycle. So that concludes the admin portion. If anyone has any questions.
Yeah, let's go right around the table. Mr. Gomez, you're chanting at the bit there. It must be extremely important.
No, you had a couple of questions. I was holding them off to the very end. First, going to go back to slide number 2, 2018-2019 assumptions. You mentioned that community schools increase. A lot of that money is earmarked for students with special needs, I believe.
Which one did you say? I'm sorry.
The last one on the list, community schools increase.
Yeah, the 40%, right.
and that the district's looking forward for greater community involvement.
Community involvement.
You elaborate?
Yeah, so we've used some of the funds for crisis interventionists in the buildings. We have some administrators at risk in the high school, so we keep expanding those type of services for the students in the buildings. Yeah.
When you say at-risk students that having difficulty keeping up towards graduation?
Right, correct. So they may be, the administrator is responsible for, if a student's failing multiple classes, they go and check on the student, they put a plan together, and they get the student on track.
And does that include services for students that need services outside of the school, for example?
It can. We don't have that right now. The community school started, I think we received $700,000 the first year. Then it went to 1.1 million last year. Now we're going to be up to about 1.5 this year. So it just keeps growing as our English language learners population keeps growing. So that's what we're going to really start focusing on as well. We've been talking preliminarily about some community programs for the students, after school programs and things like that, to get them involved.
And now, I didn't see it on the screen, but with respect to the estimated percent of the total budget, do you have an idea, like what portion of that it goes to unfunded mandates from the state?
I don't. I can get that for you. I mean, there's a lot that we fund.
It's my understanding that were we not to have those unfunded mandates, we're talking about we could have had more liberty to use resources in the classroom.
Correct.
And I believe it was Dr. Eastwood who even mentioned that the taxpayers, the property owners, we even saved money as well.
Correct.
If that were the case. So
Yep.
that'll be good enough if you could look into that.
I'll get that for you.
And then on the major category synopsis, my last question, I saw there was like a $30,000, correct me if I'm wrong, $30,000 increase in legal fees, or a significant increase.
Yeah.
What accounts for that?
There's different things that account. So we have hearings, we have, so this past year specifically and continuing on, we've had a lot of contractual meetings with unions, a lot of the CBA, the collective bargaining units. We need to renegotiate, so that drives up some of the legal fees, because every time we always need legal counsel to come in and things like that.
So it hasn't been because of any lawsuits against the district? Okay.
No.
We've done well with that.
Just looking at, what we do is look at historical spending. So we try to trend with what we're doing. And so we don't need to do budget transfers or, we're pretty accurate with our estimate.
Okay, so is it the projection for this year that we'll be able to have a budget that will not be a budget with pain where there will be loss of academic programs or layoffs? So far, the funding looks good.
I don't really want to say too much, but I would think, based on what we're seeing with the aid runs, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape.
Okay.
I don't think there'll be much pain this year.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Remember, the final aid runs are not in yet.
Right. So it's hard to really say, yeah.
Thank you for the comments, Mr. Gomez. I'm glad to see you're going to take up the cudgel for unfunded mandates. I've been working on that, and we've all been working at it for the last a decade and more. And although a number of promises, nothing has been done to relieve us of the burden of unfunded mandates. So,
Actually, a couple of weeks back, I came across a list of all the state unfunded mandates. I'll see if I can get a copy for all the board members.
oh, yes, I've had many copies of those. Thank you. Bishop Williams, do you have anything at this time?
No.
And I want to thank you for being here. And I understand that it was an effort because of family. Thank you so much. We'll start at Mr. Crescenzo.
I don't know if you can answer this now, or if it's an appropriate question for this point in time, but with the new federal tax code, where you can only deduct $10,000, is that going to be a serious problem for us down the road?
It's hard to say. I mean, it depends on, I don't think there's that many houses above
Over
10,000. Yeah, I mean, I can certainly run the numbers and see what that'll impact, but
Yeah.
the only thing it may impact is voting. I mean, I don't, I can't
Right.
foresee what the impact will be.
Okay.
And I'm sure people will find ways to have other deductions.
Right. And can you just give a very, very brief history of where the tax cap came from?
I think primarily the tax cap came from the state wanted to slow down the spending. At some point, it was really growing faster than the communities could keep up with. So they came up with a formula to slow down how much you can actually put on your tax levy every year, right? So although it says 2%, there's a formula on the back end. Like last year, we were a little bit over 3% increase. And so it depends on how all of your capital expenditures and how much debt you have and those types of things to get. So this year will be a little bit probably over 2% as well. Yeah, it's really just a tool to slow down the spending. Yeah.
Thanks. But not increase state aid?
True.
Okay, thanks.
I know that's a complicated formula. There's about 9 steps to
There's a
go
lot of steps.
through.
Yeah, that's correct. You remember that well. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
the New York Giants, when they had the salary caps, they had what the owner called a capologist. I think you need for this a
You need
tax capologist too.
you need a good
because
math mind
It's
for
not an easy job to calculate that.
No.
Mrs. Blumenauer, go ahead.
My mic was on. I don't have any questions. Thank you. You answered my one question.
Mrs. Zucks? Thank you. A number of us, I know, asked questions before the meeting.
Yep.
And thank you all for doing that.
Yeah.
And
My
for-
phone's always ready.
Thank you. You have the instructional?
Yes, I do. Yep.
Okay, go right ahead.
They'll cue that up. There we go. All right. A little bit of deja vu because it's supposed to be 2 different presentations. So tonight we're going to present the instructional budget, and then next time we'll have the capital and benefits, and then on March 15th we'll have the revenue discussion. Again, same type of information. Tonight, this piece is roughly 57% of the total budget. So there's a lot involved. It's over a $100 million component. So there's a lot of number crunching, which leaves room for a lot more variables when we get state aid and those types of things. Now, inside of this budget, there's a lot of things that we have pressures with, and I'll show you those in a few minutes. But let's just go over our assumptions again. These are the same slides as we saw before. The thing that really drives some of this is TRS and the ERS. So those are those rates. Looking at the annual inflation is 2%. And the CPI is over 2%, but they also wanted us to maintain a 2% cap. So the national spending is over 2%, but they want us to spend 2 or less. So. And our foundation aid is 3%. It's a pretty substantial increase for us at this point, looking at the revenues as well. So if we look at the 8-year history, right now, it's a little bit, our growth is a little bit less than it was last year at 4.91%. Over the past few budgets, we were a little bit higher, but at this point, we're looking at a 4.91% increase over last year's spending. One of the things that we're always trying to do is look at the pressures from the budgets, and as Mr. Gomez asked, unfunded mandates are there. Those are the things that we're constantly looking ways to pay for. They eliminated summer programs for us a while ago. The district actually funds that summer program. So there's an expense there. The big one for us now is a continuation of the district and Race to the Top initiatives. The board had approved several meetings ago all the initiatives that were in place to keep them moving. But through good budgeting practices over the past 2 or 3 years, we were able to start building some of those budgets not to get a big hit when the Race to the Top grant ended. So we're able to sustain all those initiatives for September. They're not going anywhere. So we're excited about that piece. We're seeing a growing homeless student population. And the other thing that's our really big pressure coming, it's looming, is our community development with new building permits being issued at different places inside the district. So that drives enrollment, that drives busing, that drives staff. It drives a lot of things inside the community. and, you're trying to prepare for all that as you're building a budget. So here's the program component. Really, contractually is the, the regular instruction. Those are contractual numbers that we're, maintaining stride with. We're just looking, the other thing that we're looking at is some equipment. As we keep moving forward and building these great facilities, they need maintenance, and sometimes they need new things that we need to purchase and replace to keep the facilities up to, the standard that we're used to with them. So for this year, it's at a 4.96% increase. Again, like the program component consists primarily of all the student instruction. So it's staff, it's guidance counselors, it's social workers, psychologists, health services, guidance, attendance. A lot of the computer component comes out of there. Our district transportation comes out of there. And our contract transportation's up a little bit this year. Trying to keep pace with all the new student enrollments that we have, and the more buses that we could possibly need to fund all those to get the students to school safely. So that's where we are with the program component. And again, this is without benefits. I just want to keep reiterating that. So next week, the next meeting, we'll show the benefits component where all that takes place. What makes up the program increases? Majority of it salaries. We have some equipment increases, supplies. Our purchase services are up a little bit. And then our special education program, transportation's up. And then our other BOCES costs for just our occupation, when the students go down there for vocation, that enrollment's way up from where we used to be. So we're looking at students going to BOCES as well. Oops. Back. All right, so just to reiterate the calendar, the budget adoption will be April 19th, and then the budget election vote will be May 15th. Please contact Taryn Clark, the district clerk, at 326-1196. Make sure you're registered and you know where to vote. Very important. Questions? You have any questions?
Why don't we go around and why don't we start at the other end of the table this time with Mrs. Zucks? Do you have anything at this time? And you always can come back to this at a later date because we will be having discussions for the next few months on this. So if you don't have anything now, you can ask Mr. Tuttle privately, so to speak, or we can discuss this later on when we have all the components. Anything tonight? Okay. Thank you. Mrs. Blumenau?
On regular school instruction salaries?
Yeah.
The salary line, can you share the increase, and is this, just not remembering from last year to the previous
It's right around the
this year?
same. It's right around the same number.
It's about a $2 million
Yeah, it's right around $2
increase
million increase. Yeah, that's
for.
contractual. It's all contractual salaries.
Contractual
Yep.
salaries, right?
And then we embed in there the stipends for any of the extra activities that the teachers are doing, the digital content and those types of things.
Okay. Does that include overall salary for new staff being hired? Because
it will,
our numbers grow, so are we?
Yeah, so when we get at probably the next revenue discussion, we'll talk about additional budget requests that buildings are asking for, and then that may change a little bit based on those needs.
That would include a teacher,
Right.
another,
Yeah,
an additional
so if you wanted to add
teacher
another
or-
FTE, right,
Mhm.
yeah.
Great,
So
thank
it
you.
may grow a little bit if we want to add, if the revenues are good and we can afford more staffing. The one thing we're going to be cognizant of in the salaries and staffing is the growth projections are showing over 2,500 students in the high school coming up over the next 3 years. So we're going to have to start preparing for that.
That's why I was wondering if we were starting to look at that now.
Yeah, we
but-
will. When we do the additional budget requests, we'll have that discussion.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I think they're going to need some FTEs over there for some different programs.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Nothing at this time, thank you.
He said nothing.
Pardon me?
We come and shake my hand.
Okay. Mr. Gomez?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just want to go, you alluded to that we have a growing homeless student population.
Correct.
Can you give us like a little brief description? What's the makeup of when we say homeless student population? Are we referring to students that are displaced out of their homes, students who are in a homeless shelter? What?
It could be a multitude of things. So there's a lot of different things that are happening, and we're seeing an increase in the homeless population. So they could be at a motel, they could be living with their family there, they could be, they could have been displaced from their home. Now we're also seeing where we need transportation to, if a student lived in another district and then they came here, we'd have to transport them. So there's a lot of things that are involved in the
And
homeless.
does that include children that might have been removed of their home because of a child protective case in family court?
It could, I mean, if it deems them homeless, yeah, that could be there. One of our staff members maintains all of that information, and she keeps she gets a pretty good handle on the movement of students, where they're living, are they in, are they in Newburgh, are they coming to school here, those types of things. So we're constantly tracking, the homeless population.
So in addition to transportation costs, when we talk about these expenditures for our students that are being marked as homeless, does that include also support services, counseling, because of the difficult situations that might be?
The transportation costs would not, but it could be, social services would probably pick up most of those costs.
And as far as the slide with respect to program component pressures, there you listed the race for the top.
Yeah.
Now, in a God forbid doomsday budget, if that race for the top were cut off, what services then will our children be losing? What academic programs?
Well, the thing is, what I referred to as a pressure was to maintain the programs that were inside the race at the top. So the program actually ended, I think, Amy, right in December, right? So we're phased out of race at the top. We're just finalizing all the paperwork now and closing out. So what we've done over the past couple of years is budgeted for all those programs. So the good case in point is the SUPA courses at the high school. So you see a line specifically, we have SUPA in there, right, to maintain that program.
I mean, these are initiatives that have opened wonderful doors of learning opportunities for our children, and I would like our district to continue them. I think one very positive point to look at is, according to the breakdown you showed us, our budget expenditure for academics is 57%. The reason I'm repeating that, over the years, over the decades, when we heard at the federal debate over education spending, one of the arguments made is that only $1 out of every $10 goes to the classroom. And here in our school district, I think we made a committed effort that over half is going to the classroom.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that our district could feel proud of, to show that we're putting the money to work. And even what's going into other areas, such as administration, all at the end is geared to making sure that our classrooms have the best services, be it from administrators, the teachers, that our children could use and benefit from. So
Right.
I'm very pleased with the report. Going forward.
Thank you.
As you remember, Mr. Gomez, at the December 12th meeting, I believe we adopted the 5-year plan to keep and thank you for bringing it up, to keep our programs going. So no students who are, for example, in elementary and middle schools will be disadvantaged. Hopefully we can provide them with the same type of opportunities and services as the students in 2018, 2019, 2017, 2018.
Yeah, and to add on a little bit, one of the things that the district has done very well over the past 14 years was to keep the per pupil ratio lower, roughly $1,000 lower than districts of similar makeups. So we'll continue to keep that pace, $1,000 less than all the other districts of a similar population. Yeah.
Bishop Williams.
I don't really have any questions. I wanted to be here. I wanted to make my way over here tonight, despite the challenges I had for the presentations. I didn't want to miss these presentations, and I'm glad I did. I'm pleased. I do want to make a comment. I noticed something here in the program component on the amount of dollars that are spent on students with handicapping, and roughly when we go back down and we look at the program totals without benefits, it's running around 108. Am I right?
Yep.
For this next budget.
Correct.
So the students with handicapping being at 30,000, that's what, about 26%, somewhere around there. So
30 million. What do you think?
30 million. 30 million. I don't know. I'm not. That's why I'm a preacher, not a math.
Hang on. I'm trying to find which line you're on.
But
You all right?
thank you. But I think that's something to take note of. Considering our population, because we talked. Mr. Gomez just talked about the growing, and you talked about it, the growing homeless student population, and then we got our at-risk population. Students are at risk, and how that is also something that we've addressed. But just to reaching the needs of all of our students, even students with handicaps, and we've done well to kind of fold a lot of that back into our district and into our budget, so that we're not relying on everybody else to a major degree to handle things. So I just wanted to make note of that for anybody, or for the one or two people that are watching online right now, or those who will watch the replay later. But it's I think that's a significant piece of this particular line item, or this particular part of the budget, of how we are addressing those issues. So,
One of the things that's hard to do is you got to look at the trends. So, right now we're in February. September's a long way away. We don't know how many students are coming in September 1.
Right.
What services they need. So you're trying to have a good estimate of what that's going to be, and hope you're pretty accurate.
I've always believed that the road to success is paved with preparation. So we've been doing that for a long time, and so I think that with what I'm seeing so far of this part of these two budget presentations, I think we're trying to keep that road paved, so that when we do have challenges, and it's a guarantee that we will eventually have challenges, because everybody does, but we're doing pretty good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, and I've asked my questions to you before, but I want to thank you and your staff for preparing this budget. I believe this is the second year you've been.
Yep, year two. Year went fast. I survived. I don't know.
You do an excellent job, and somehow it even gets better every year. So thank you again.
Thank you.